G'day everyone, and welcome to the Victorian High Country of Eastern Australia, an area known for vast mountain ranges, fast-flowing rivers, and snow. A bit of a rarity here in Australia to find snow, and we're here on 3 dirt bikes to have a ride in some snow if we can find it. There'll be a few stacks along the way, mostly me, sometimes not me, and plenty of repairs to be done to these motorbikes along the way to keep them going on this several 100-kilometer journey to find snow at these high altitudes. We have the occasional creature along the way and plenty of campfires to keep our boots warm. Now, in order to get out there, we do need to four-wheel drive a couple of hours outside of the nearest town. That nearest town being a small town called Dargo. Outside of Dargo, we have the Victorian High Country, and we're camping on a river called the Wongan River. It's fairly deep, fast flowing, and as you can see here, very, very clean. The Victorian High Country itself consists of 5,200 square kilometers of vast mountain ranges with very varied riding. There's lots and lots of river crossings, a lot of high hill climbs in dusty conditions in our case, and a lot of descending these mountains as well. Lots and lots of spur tracks and the occasional valley with very clean and clear areas of effectively grassland. Amazing, something we don't get in West Australia. And of course, something else we don't get in West Australia, snow. As soon as we reach the top of these mountains, there is snow to ride in and the occasional trail that the GPS says is there, but teeters out to nothing. And of course, with these long rides, we do have some nighttime riding on some perilous bridges. So let's see how we go. Day one, we're looking to find snow, of course, and we are crossing lots of rivers. In fact, we're crossing the same river several times. The Wongan River and the Crooked River in this region goes up and down the mountain, and we need to cross the same river several times. We don't really know how deep it is. In this case here, it was quite deep, especially through the middle, with a couple of holes in which, of course, we can fall into. Once the bikes go under, we tend to find we have water in the combustion chamber, especially if they fell over while we were riding them. Maybe a little bit more luck here for the KTM. Let's have a look and see if a different line will help us get across this river here on the right-hand side. Unfortunately, no, not to be. It's also quite deep on that side as well. And a little bit of a perspective here, it is quite fast running water. It doesn't look like it's moving very quickly, but once you get your motorbike in the middle of the river, you can see here, I attempted to go on the left-hand side, which is a little bit more shallow, but the current of the river will force the bike downstream. As you can see here, it's pushing me downstream quite a lot. I'm fighting it a little bit, and by fighting it, it makes the bike a little bit more awkward to ride. But of course, I did eventually get through, and my smugness was very short-lived because I did fall off a little bit later in a different river, or the same river further up the track, and I did the exact same thing as these two did with their motorbikes. But okay, I can celebrate a little bit here and be a little bit smug while we get the water out of all these cylinders. Make sure you've got equipment to remove spark plugs if you're riding through this region, because these rivers are a little bit high, especially in winter, and the chance of dunking your bike turns out very, very high. Of course, once my smugness had worn off, mostly due to this here, we can see everyone else is successful getting up this hill, and I had a couple of attempts and I certainly wasn't. I stacked it as usual on this section of the hill, and my karmic justice was paid just there. Now, all back on our bikes again, we're still traveling in the same region, having a bit of a look around and get our bearings, and crossing lots of rivers. You can see here, these are mainly designed for four-wheel drives to cross, and some of the exits can be a little bit difficult, and there can be quite a few hidden hazards under the water. We did get pretty good at it. During the day, we were crossing lots and lots of the same river, mostly. Of course, eventually I did come off and the bike was still running. So we want to drain all the water out of the exhaust and the airbox before attempting to turn the engine over. If there's any water in there, we need to remove the spark plugs, but eventually I did get it going again, and here's the result. I had a lot of water in my engine oil. No problem. We changed the engine oil, and on day two, a much drier day, we're looking for a little bit more elevation. We're going to head up a few of these mountains and see what we can see, and also see what we can find. A bit more of a dusty day, a warmer day, and of course a drier day as well. Doesn't really do it justice on these videos, but these are very, very steep hills. Some of these are steep to go up, and they're also quite steep to come down. We can see we've got some of these reliefs in the roads that's there for four-wheel drives to help with the braking on our way down these very, very steep hills. Anywhere from about 300 to about 1200 meters we're traveling at here, and we did reach the top of this mountain here at 1200 meters. You can see one in the distance there does have a bit of that snow we're looking for at the end of this winter period. Nice little view of the top of this sort of head that we've got, and we will head back down the mountain and try again tomorrow to see what else we can find, and if we can find a little bit more elevation to get some of that snow riding in. Now here we are on day 3. I called day 3 disaster because it started out pretty good. We're having a good time, and then things got a little bit weighing us. We had a few issues with our motorbikes, and we ended up having to ride back in the dark across a few mountains, which was a very cold experience. First up, we had to cross the main river here. It was far too deep to cross with motorbikes, so we have a walking bridge here. We can walk our motorcycles across, and that's exactly what we did. A little bit perilous. It's a very old bridge, and it moves around quite a lot. We're only a few meters above the water level, but you still feel it nevertheless. It swings about a bit. You're trying to balance a motorbike, and the water beneath was flowing pretty fast. It was fairly deep as well. Nevertheless, we crossed it, supported each other across the bridge, and I was by far the slowest. It was a bit of a perilous activity, but we pushed the bikes across, and we were on the other side before we knew it. I've sped up the footage a little bit here because I was exceptionally slow crossing this bridge. I was definitely careful, and I was definitely taking my time. With all of us across that bridge, we made our way up the Billy Goat Bluff track, about 70 k's from our camp. It's very steep, and it's also very shaly and rocky. It's both steep up and down hills as well, and this is where I did puncture my front tyre. It was slowly going down, and I had to keep pumping it up. On this track here, there's a lot of grip, but it is also very steep and rocky, as I mentioned. If we tend to get a little bit of grip on our back tyre and we're not going very fast and we hit the accelerator, the bike will either wheelie if we're not sitting further forward, or it will stall. And in this case here, I ended up wheeling a little bit across the track and had to come to a stop before I came off the edge there. There are trees lining the edges, but they can be quite severe. As you can see here, there's not much movement here. If you fall off your bike on an edge, probably best to let the bike go down the hill because you wouldn't want to follow after it. We are in the middle of nowhere here. We're about 1200 meters. It's a very narrow track, and as you can see, it is exceptionally vast out in the Victorian high country. So we continue to follow our track to find our way to Mount Kent, which is about 1400 meters. We're following the track. As we got to about 1400 meters here, you can see it is quite the forest. Unusually, there is quite the forest at the top. It's also quite a bit colder at these altitudes. The track also teetered into nothing. Unfortunately, our GPS said the track would keep going and find a loop back to camp. There's me stacking it again. But unfortunately, it didn't. So we had to follow our way where the track should have been and find our way back onto the main track to get back to camp. As you can see here, there is no track. We did eventually find somewhat of a track. We also lost a small section of the KTM. We lost the axle retainer nut. So here we are walking around trying to find it. Axle nut found.
Yeah, found the retainer, and now we're heading down.
No thanks to us, but we tried it. Now we've got to walk all the way down here. It's way steeper than you think. It really is. In your 30s and walking through the bush. Oh. K's and K's when we have motorbikes that we could easily ride. That we left at the bottom.
These boots are not made for walking.
They are squeaky, aren't they? Oh yes. Oh well, we do motorbike hiking. Motor hiking. With the axle nut found and reinstalled, we started making our way back down to the Billy Goat Bluff track. We couldn't keep going the way we were because there was no track, so we had to backtrack about 70 kilometers. I had a flat front tire. It was very cold and it was starting to rain. Of course, it was getting darker, and you can see here the Husqvarna's front headlight wasn't actually working on the way down the steep section of the track. A little bit perilous, and a little bit daunting. My chain guide also decided to leave the chat, so I had no chain guide, a flat front tire, and we were traveling the hard way home. You can see here I'm just pumping up the front tire one more time before crossing the same little bridge to get back. The bridge was quite a bit more daunting in the wind and the rain and at night time. My headlight isn't amazing. It was cold and windy and we couldn't really see where we were going here. Not ideal way to cross this rather perilous bridge, but we all got across, albeit rather slowly and carefully. As you can see there, I stalled my bike and things get really dark when the headlight turns off. Now day 4 was mostly about repairing all of our bikes. I needed to change my front tire and we need to do some repairs to this chain guide as well. I bought a new one for the trip and it failed pretty much immediately. Luckily we did have a bead breaker. You don't need one, but it's nice to have, and a couple of small tools that I take with me on the bike for changing tyres. Lubrication really helps us fit the tyre back onto the rim. We didn't have any, so I used a bar of soap and it was jolly successful, and here you can see me pumping up my new tyre and inner tube. As for the chain guide, I did have an inner tube, so I cut a section out of it and glued it in the chain guide like this, and it worked perfectly for the rest of the trip. Better than the one I bought new to do the trip with. Of course, day 5, we finally found some snow. We headed for Mount Sarah, and that sits at about 1550 to 1600 meters, and that's around about where it was snowing in late August. It wasn't quite that easy to get there. It is quite a steep climb, and it had been raining the day before, making everything rather slippery. This climb up here, as you can see, we're both riding up here fairly easily until I hit a slippery patch, and of course, once again, I stacked the bike. A fairly easy stack there. Wasn't anything too crazy. The Honda's a little bit heavy to stand up, but it was all rather successful in terms of a stack. I'll take a stack like that any day. Of course, once we finally got to the top, we have snow. It had been snowing the night before, and around about 1500 meters, there was some snow and a bit of ice, making it a little bit slippery, but nothing too crazy. This is a hut we were looking for called Guy's Hut. If you're looking for Guy's Hut, it is no longer there. It has burnt down some time ago, and that's what's left of Guy's Hut. But we eventually found the snow. Very, very happy with that. In WA, we do not get a chance to play with snow or even ride in snow. Very, very cool thing to do. Thank you very much for watching. Alrighty.
Is someone coming up? Yeah.